On this episode of Real Estate on the Rocks, we celebrate our 100th episode.
Real Estate on the Rocks, where you get top shelf real estate conversations served straight up, never watered down. Here's your host, Dave Snowberger.
That's right, we are back in the studio today for our 100th episode, and we brought in the big guns for this one. Not just Marshall and the Butcher James, but we've got Steve Fohl.
All right.
Steve.
Howdy, everyone. Good to be back.
Fohl.
Hello there, Mr. Snowberger. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for flying in for this podcast. We certainly appreciate it.
Hey, I have to tell you, it was a lot warmer here than it was in Michigan.
I bet. So, man, all right, let's get to it. Today's topics are just going to be all over the place. We're just really going to talk about our 100th episode. We're going to talk about some do's and don'ts in the real estate business, and we're going to talk about consistency, and we're just going to pick Steve's brain at really 20 plus years of knowledge this guy has. If you haven't heard his previous podcast, I believe it's episode
23 and 24, I believe.
23 and 24. Go check those out. Those are some fantastic podcasts, and they have some of they're our biggest episodes.
Yeah.
A few of them. Yeah, so you dropping those knowledge bombs, people are tuning in, man.
I love it. Let's
it's
do funny,
it again.
I can't get anyone else to listen to me.
Especially the kids, right?
Exactly.
The kids and the pets don't
The
listen,
dogs,
right?
the kids.
So let's just start by Steve Fohl. Tell everybody who you are again.
I'm Steve Fohl, and I was trained in real estate under one of America's top real estate agents, my brother Les Fohl. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area and spent 17 years there as a broker, and then retired actually and moved up to Seattle, Washington, bought my dream home and did all the things you'd ever do off of your dream board. And my son was diagnosed with autism, and my now ex-wife, then wife, said to me, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll get my real estate license, number one. And how will you do that? You don't know anybody up here." And so it was do all of the things I'd been coached to do through the years, and started farming, and all of a sudden had this great business going in Seattle. And the Seattle care wasn't enough to help Logan out. So we moved to Austin, Texas, where they have fantastic care for my son, and got into real estate here. And as a matter of fact, Marshall and James, that is how Dave and I met, was in real estate at blank Goodwin. Can I say that?
No plugs for you.
I don't think there's a bunch of good ones out there where people are going to put two and two together. There wasn't
Could be the property management.
Right.
Could be property management.
Yeah, we worked at a high-level property management company, just taking in all those complaints about trash cans being out too long.
I was the janitor. Dave was cleaning toilets. That's how we met there.
Yeah, we joined forces.
And so coming to Austin, it was the same thing. It was getting my real estate license here. That's the fourth different state that I had been licensed in, and going to work the only way that I knew how, which was farming and door knocking, open houses, doing all of the 7 major forms of prospecting to try and get my business off the ground, like I know so many agents
Don't.
Yeah, exactly. That, actually, I couldn't have said that better myself. That's right.
So yeah, I mean that's one reason it's so valuable to have you in here to talk to people. Our show is focused. We're at our 100th episode. However, we're going to remain focused on the new agents coming into the business. I'm worried about them. I was one of them. If it wasn't, if you and I didn't meet at that janitorial company and cleaning those toilets, I would have never started doing the things that I didn't want to do when I didn't want to do them. Right? I didn't even know that phrase back then. I kind of jacked that from Tim Harris, one of our friends to the podcast. However, I didn't know what I was doing. And in that first year, I ghosted, through a career, and I just kind of was a zombie. And I would do a lease or two, and I didn't know how to prospect. I didn't know how to do these things. And then all of a sudden I met Steve, right? And Steve comes in and brings all this knowledge with him and starts telling me, like, you got to do these things. There's no way around it. You got to stop fooling yourself. Right. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. And so I maybe, the 80-20 rule, I might have started doing maybe 10% more. Definitely didn't 10x it. I 1x'd it. I just started doing some things he was doing. And all of a sudden I started seeing the balls go in motion, right? And I always like to take credit for this myself. Like other podcasts, I was like, I got out there and I started doing this. Steve Fohl kicked me in the ass to do this kind of stuff, right? Verbally. not physically. I'm sure there was a couple times.
wanted to physically.
Right. And so I started doing all these things, and he put these 7 really direct income producing activities, DIPA, in my life, and I started doing them. And by the second year in real estate, I won the Rookie of the Year. Right, great for me. Right, pat on the back. However, that doesn't still pay the bills. You didn't make it at that point. I didn't make it at that point. Right, I had to continuously do these things that you were talking about. So as you're mentoring and you're coaching and you're really realizing all this stuff, I want to pour that back into this podcast today. And I really want to speak to those first year agents. Marshall had a really rough first year.
It sounded like yours, really. But I didn't win the Rookie of the Year the second year, though.
Right.
Still climbing.
Yeah, exactly. But you made more money in your second year than I did the first year that I won the Rookie of the Year.
Made more money in my second year than I did
money,
my whole year's salary.
Correct.
It's about the experience you gain and how you can make this career sustainable, right? We see a lot on the Instagram world, right, where hashtag realtor life, and just like people with these sharp cars and great houses and all this other stuff, and they're just really making it the high level. I think that fools people to get into our business, and we lose focus on that we have to come in every day and do those DIPA activities, right?
Absolutely correct. An Uber driver said it to me best. I was in Deep Ellum, Dallas one night after Dave Matthews concert, and he said to me, I said, man, look at some of these nice cars when we were driving down to a jazz club downtown. And he said, oh yeah, Dallas, home of the $40,000 a year millionaires. And I thought, I have never heard that before. And I must have laughed for like 20 minutes hysterically, thinking that was one of the funniest things I'd ever heard. And real estate truly is like that. Most realtors, it seems to me, are more interested in exuding I am making it rather than making it. And it's so funny because it takes about the same amount of work. You're still posting stuff to social media all the time and getting out and talking to people and et cetera. And you go, it's kind of the same thing. Your ladder is against the wrong wall, so to speak. And so I think that if agents focus on, you said a second ago, Dave, that and it's not all about the money, right? And you go, right, it's kind of like life. I mean, we all know that air is the key, air and water, the key to our lives and stuff, but you go, that goes without saying. You need money to be able to function in life. That goes without saying. You need to be able to afford things, the heat in your house, your rent or mortgage, your car, et cetera. That goes without saying. But where my career turned on a paradigm shift, and this was selling in California, Seattle, Washington, and Austin, Texas, so it didn't change no matter where I went, was when you put the, here is my plan for the day, and in order that your mind conceives and understands, because what works for you may not work for me and vice versa. What works for Marshall may not work for James and vice versa. When you put what your mind conceives as a reasonable plan with those methods of prospecting that we discussed in the first podcast, you want to be an open house specialist, then darn it, become a specialist, right? I mean, stop tiptoeing around and some weekends doing 3 signs and some weekends doing 5 signs. And this weekend I couldn't find my banner, so I didn't do that. And become a specialist. You want to become a specialist in farming, become a specialist. Stop going out once and going, well, I didn't get any business from it, and so I'll go on to something else. When you do the right activities and your ladder is against the right wall, you are going to find that consistency pays off for you over and over again going forward, and most importantly in the long run, because you don't want to be the average agent in this for 2 years and out.
Right. And I heard this morning, and I've probably said it 100 times, and I've heard everybody at the table say it. However, consistency is the new currency, right? And so
exactly.
This business is built on consistency. And it took me realizing that I didn't have to work, or I couldn't work with everybody out there. So stop trying to, right? Mm-hmm. And dial it in and become a specialist. And that's when I became a listing specialist. And I knew that if I could do at least 100 transactions a year, if I was on track to do the 100 transactions while I was getting there, I would be, living a nice life, and we did some other things. We joined EXP and we brought some people over. We get to partake in revenue share. We get to partake in the stock options. When we close things, we can buy stock, and we receive stock for agent attraction, things like that. So that's helped on the road to hitting 100 transactions consistently a year. Right. So, I have been kind of backtracking, and I want to become a specialist in consistency, is what I'm trying to get out of my mouth here. Is I preach consistency constantly. When I walk into my company, Snowberger Realty Group, and I have my agents in the room and my admins in the room, I want to talk about what are we going to do today to stay consistent, right? So if the goal is to make $1 million, for every agent in my outfit to make $1 million, right? Like, what are we going to stay consistent to do that every day? We can't be a hodgepodge agent. Just like that's just what's running around the industry is people that are willing to work with anybody and spinning their wheels, running, trying to work with everybody, when realizing if they just consolidated down and got a little bit more consistent and just really found one activity they loved, whether it was open houses, whether it was working FSBOs, expires withdrawals, whether it was working with relo, whether it was working with veterans, whatever, it's going to work. Everything works, nothing doesn't.
Exactly right. And one thing that we know from our years starting out here with the company that we started with, one of my favorite sayings there was, hard work still works. Hard work still works. It is... we seem to have reached a comfort point with technology and things of that nature where, some agents believe that all they need to do is take a selfie every day and post it to Facebook, or a little quick 30-second video saying, call me with all your real estate needs. And you go, right, and obviously for you, Marshall, that works. But I'm talking about the rule, not the exception. It's to sit back now, a couple years removed from the industry, and look at what goes on inside of the industry. And Dave, I think I mentioned it to you at the beginning, is you go, consistency and planning would change the failure rate in real estate enormously. Consistency and continuing education would change the failure rate in the industry enormously. Agents seem to either never be interested in the continuing education side, or they seem to reach a plateau where they feel like, okay, I know enough. And every single top producer I know in every single state that I know them to be working in continues their education.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things I was mentioning to you before the show here, that I've seen drop off big time.
Yeah, I've dealt with. Sorry, I'm going to just keep notes here and you can barely read them.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you doodling?
That's a beautiful.
I got in here last week. It turns out that Marshall over there, when I'm asking him to contribute, he's writing down things. I've went through his notebook. He's like drawing houses, and they're on fire.
Like
they're on fire.
stuff.
They're mushrooms and things like that. Like, what are you going to take mushrooms? Like, what are you doing, dude?
Here's a caricature of Steve and Dave on vacation.
Practicing for a side gig, artist job.
Yeah. No, I was really just worried about this, but yeah, the consistency and the learning stuff. I still haven't been able to give up learning yet. That's one of my biggest things. Like, we took on this podcast thing 99 episodes ago, right? And when we first did it, we didn't know anything about it. We could barely, some of us can still not hit the record button, but the Butcher.
It's a very camouflage button.
It's hard to miss.
Hashtag James the Butcher.
That was a backhanded compliment towards you, Butcher.
And so, now by learning more about podcasts and just kind of studying it a little bit more, or watching the experts out in the business, or what we consider the experts out in the business, we've just decided to upgrade our equipment here and there. Now we have more topics to talk about. If we continue the education every day, I get up in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I start just with podcasts, right? Or I start with the best, or the top articles in Inman, or wherever else out there I can just take in. And I know these guys do the same thing. So our podcasts these days probably still suck, but are better than they were 99 episodes ago. And so if we're consistently getting better, it's only because we've continued to learn. And it's the same thing in our real estate careers, right? As I grow this team, I learn more about people. I learn how I can better talk to people, right? I can get more with honey than I can do with vinegar. Right. And so if I can learn how to talk to people or identify their problems, I can help them through their problems, which will help them get back into production, or help them get into production. Right. Versus maintaining the fail out rate of 85, 86, 87%, whatever it is. And so that's been on me to learn to deal with just people better, agents better. And I mean, that takes learning, right? I mean, that's something that I wasn't blessed with. I have a high D personality. I'm on paper a dickhead, and it's just kind of like, you know, I mean, I hate to say that, however, it's just kind of like I'm a little bit more stern, and it's, if you're not doing your job, it's typically get out, right? You can't act like that anymore, you know, and not anymore. It's just better. That's not a good way to be a leader, I guess I'm what I'm saying. So we're gonna pivot into some leadership now. However, I've learned how to be a better leader, and really, once again, to toot your horn or you know, give you a little bit of fist bump there. I learned to be a better leader from you, from some people in the industry that were a better leader, right? And so that's where my education's been lately. It's like I do know the contract in and out. You know, I mean, I do know those kind of things. I can always learn more about the contracts. However, I'm trying to learn more about people, learn more about the business, learn more about just kind of what it takes to be a better leader. You know, so
you've done a fantastic job. I mean, I'll congratulate all three of you. 100 podcast episodes. That's phenomenal. That's I can remember when Dave first started telling me about that. As a matter of fact, last night I sat out in the backyard drinking an eggnog and bourbon, because now that you've said dickhead, I realize, hey, we can say other things. We're not going to get a note from the FCC. I was sitting out in the backyard last night sipping on that drink during the Monday night game, thinking about the show today and thinking about how far it is that you have come from the, you guys want to hear a leadership story that it isn't happy and rainbows and unicorns? Man, one night I was sitting in my office as the sales and leasing manager at the real estate company I started out with here in Texas. And Dave's sitting out in the agent bullpen on the phone, and I hear him talking. And after the phone conversation, I walk out there and I said, can I talk to you for a second? And we kind of sat down together, and I was explaining to him that, man, some agents here in the office feel like you're a little brash. and I think that some outside agents may feel the same way. I just heard your phone conversation and et cetera. And I can't tell you today, Dave Snowberger, I can hardly recognize the guy that you are today, because back then you were that way, and to Dave's credit, he owned it. He didn't care. He didn't really care what other people thought. Man, I'm here to make money in this business, and that's the direction that my real estate career is headed, and that's okay. There are a lot of very successful real estate agents that have that same opinion. Don't attend their closings. Could care less about what the other agent thinks, about what other agents in their office think. And so watching you grow inside of the industry that way has been huge. And of course, I'm sure it's just coincidence that your business has meteorically risen as a result of that, because that carries over into everything, including dealing with the clients. Yeah.
I always appreciated conversations like that with you, and nobody else was willing to have them with me. Right. And so that was the good thing. And I still continue to learn on that. And sometimes you revert back to that maybe brashness or whatever else, you know, just kind of like those old school typical business laws, right? That you don't really kind of, you don't get to be a goofball on the other side of a transaction with me, right? And now I know that really I'm running both sides of the transaction. That's not meant to offend anyone. However, now I just know going into it that we're going to be running both sides of this transaction. It doesn't look like the other agent has a lot of experience, and I'm not mad about it anymore. I'm not. It doesn't convey when I have that conversation with the agent. I realize, and actually KW taught me a lot of this stuff. Was a win-win for everybody, right? And make everybody feel like everything's moving. And I could close the door, get off the phone, and like, that person is a jackwad, you know. But you just kind of have to. And then now I don't even say that kind of stuff. I just realize that, look, they just maybe not have the education. Their broker didn't train them that well. They might need the money. They might have a tough day in their life right now. They might have something going on. They might have a sick kid at home. They might have their stuff focused on somewhere else, and they're just worried about making a paycheck. Now I kind of evaluate those, and so there's more, I guess, empathy would be the word.
Absolutely.
Towards people. And that came actually from a client. Another quick story, I was going down the road, and she was talking about some of the kind of popular issues that are out there these days, right? And so they started a few years back. Not everything going on right now, or the political climate didn't happen overnight. It's been going on for years, but she was from Seattle. She had an opinion about everything, and I'm just kind of like rolling my eyes. It's like, I don't want to hear about this stuff. And I was like, truthfully, I was like, I don't care about any of the issues you're talking about. It's just like, I keep to myself, and I'm laser focused on my business. And she was like, well, then we need to have a conversation, because I don't know if I want you as my agent if you don't even have any empathy for anything in your life, and all you care about is keeping your head down and working. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose this client because I don't have an opinion about things. I thought I was in bizarro land, right? And I'm like, I thought I was supposed to not have an opinion about anything, you know? However, I learned to be more kind of empathetic to other people's opinions. And then I didn't have to agree with them, but just have the conversation with them, you know, of maybe why or why not that I felt that way or anything else. But like, I didn't at the time care much about marriage issues that were going on. I didn't care much about like equality issues, you know, and it was like, not that I don't care or have an opinion, but I didn't think of workplace, you know, or speaking with clients about it was what I was supposed to be doing.
Sure.
Right?
I think that if somebody is asking you about religion or politics and you're in sales, better be careful with your answer. I think if somebody's asking you Marianne or Ginger, it's okay to have an opinion there.
Right.
I think if somebody's asking you, bourbon or wine, it's okay to have an opinion there. They're not going to not hire you because of that. They want to know that they're dealing with a human being. As a matter of fact, you could argue that that is the reason that our system, the way it is set up today in real estate, has remained relatively unchanged with the exception of the infusion of technology, the sales percentage commission, the way that real estate has always worked, the buyer and seller agent, et cetera, et cetera. You could say that that's still intact because of that very reason, because there has the people want to have that human interaction.
Yeah.
That plain and simple. They're never going to trust selling their home to their Apple Watch. They're never going to trust that. They're going to want to talk to somebody. They're going to want to see somebody. They're going to want to know somebody is there.
Right. So, I mean, that's one thing that we coach on right now is the know, like, and trust, right? And so before, I didn't want to get to know people. You know, I wanted them to know me and like me, but however, I didn't give them anything back. If that makes sense, right? So people had that opinion about me that I was brash. I was like, it wasn't brash. Like, get to know me. I'll sit here and have a conversation with you, a beer with you. We'll have the best time. Nothing will be negative in the conversation, whatever else, and we'll be the best of friends. But it was just like typically I would keep to myself, and I didn't like a lot of nonsense, I guess. But I'm trying to justify why I acted like a jack.
I had things going on in my life.
Yeah. I had things too going on, damn it. And certainly the first year, I was pissed off all the time, right? Because you see these people walking around the office that once again, hashtag realtor life, acting like they're big ballers or whatever else. And I made $4,300 my first year, or $4,800. I can't remember because I've tried to shut it out of my memory. But I made nothing my first year, and I considered that I worked a lot. But then I freaking realized after meeting you, my second year was like I didn't work a lot. I was letting busyness mask business.
I saw your post on Facebook this morning when I was having breakfast, and I thought
exactly what I had thought of.
Yep.
It's just kind of like shuffling paperwork from one side to the other and opening a book or working on my logo. We like digging on the logos in our branding and, putting my CEO cap on, like all this BS. It doesn't mean anything, And so what meant something was barreling down and doing the work. And if I didn't like to make the phone calls, I had to find a way around that. How I found a way around that was Craigslist. Right? Door knocking, mail outs, doing postcards, doing the open houses because I didn't want to make the phone calls because I thought I was uneducated. Like I didn't know, I thought people could see straight through me when I was calling. I think most agents feel that way, that's the reason why they don't call is we lack the confidence as new agents coming in that what if they ask us a question we can't answer? I don't want to sound stupid.
Correct.
And so that's why I didn't do all that stuff. But once I turned it around and I felt like I knew what I was talking about, and I could surround myself with more people that were doing kind of those things like you. And then you put a lot of agents into production. You know that, right? So, I mean, your numbers showed it. You took that office and turned it around. God bless, Tammy, that she's such an awesome person and she did a lot for my career as well. However, it was the interjection of, putting you into the system is what Tammy needed to flourish as also the leader, right? So you and her both in leadership were able to get it together and put your whole staff, instead of like I called it murderer's row, right? So there was a huge building with all these cubicles, but there was, 10 offices, right? And the 10 offices, they were all $10+ million agents, right? So your goal is to get into one of those offices, but I called it Murderers Row because like they're just all freaking awesome, right? All these agents, and that's who everybody was striving for. And we'd go ask them a question, and like Steve would be like, but not Steve, somebody else would be like, please don't bother the busy agents.
Go back to your pen.
I thought this was
I know who that is.
Yeah.
I recognize that.
I thought this was an open door policy. That's why none of the offices have doors, right? But then I made it into one of those offices after 2 years of hard work, right? I made it into one of those offices, and people would come and ask me a question. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to be bothering us.
Is Steve not in down the row? Then why are you bothering me?
Right. You know where Steve is? Probably Buffalo Wild Wings.
The other office away from office.
Exactly. So anyway, where are we at now? So let's go ahead and pivot over to, you mentioned a few different times about tech. Right now, I think, my opinion is that people are investing too heavily in tech right now.
I agree
They're
with you.
forgetting the human aspect of the business, I think. So I'm going to let you touch on tech.
So here's my take on technology. As you know from our get together in the first episode, in our first podcast, when I got into real estate, not only were there no cell phones, there were no computers, there was no multiple listing system, there was nothing like that. We used to huddle together and wait for the crazy MLS book bus is what it was called. And he would drive by in this old bread truck and throw out the MLS book. And we would fight for it like seagulls fighting for a cookie on the beach, because we were all out there freezing, waiting for it early in the morning. So you just couldn't wait to get your buyers matched up with these properties. So that was the way that I came into the industry. So I watched it really from the dawn of technology in real estate when they came out with the thermal paper and the little line scanner, which took like an hour to print up one property. And so all the way to where we are today with Zillow leads and all these different buying zip codes and all those things. One of the things that I professed and that I thought had the greatest amount of success when I very, very first came in as the sales and leasing manager was making sure that agents understood technology's great. And I think that it's awesome to have GPS to show property. You don't need a Thomas Brothers map guide anymore. And I think it's incredible to have these quick accesses to multiple listings through cell phones, and you can work from anywhere. That has changed the industry immeasurably, and I think for the better. What I tend to think is the downside of technology is I think people get so heavily invested into it that they, A, forget where their marketing dollar is going, and B, they forget that it's a people business. Yes, it is great to be able to reach out and touch 1,000 or 5,000 people all at once at the push of a button, but are you really touching them? Do you read every single post that comes across your news feed on Facebook and Instagram? No, most stuff you glance at in passing, and if it catches your eye and is interesting, you'll continue forward in reading it. However, when someone comes to your door, you can almost always remember the very last person that came and knocked at your door, can't you? Whether you bought something from them or shoot them away or they were returning something to you. And that's that human element that I think that people have forgotten. And it was why when I came into that sales and leasing manager's job, one of the first things that I wanted to make sure that people understood was you can take whatever you're doing technologically, and I will take, I'll put up my big strength, which is door knocking against it, for instance. And then we'll see at the end of a determined period of time who has more leads and deals closed. You've been born and raised here and have all your technology, and I just moved here and don't know anyone and will use no technology at all. And I've always felt very comfortable putting that challenge up because, like I said, the face-to-face aspect of it, that's what I thrived on in this industry. Thank God that's what the industry still today is really about. It's just that's been forgotten, I think, by most agents and most people teaching agents. That they want to rely on, look, and we've got Mojo Dialer, and we've got this, and we've got that, and the other thing, and gosh darn it, a paper planner. And a business plan that you wrote down, you're making it your business plan, that still is going to take the cake. Of course, there's going to be a learning curve as you go, but that's still, you're going to find, I think, is going to be your foundation, like going to the gym. Look, are there weights in there and cardio equipment? Yes. Then it doesn't matter if it's the best weights and best cardio equipment the industry has to offer. You'll get in shape if you'll go in and use that stuff.
Yeah.
And fundamentals, just like with anything, I think that the fundamentals are what get lost in all of this wealth, almost a ridiculous wealth of technology that we have today. And so people don't sit down and handwrite plan their day. Everybody I talk to these days has their plan on a cell phone. And then when I ask them to open their cell phone calendar and hand it to me, they sheepishly say, why? Or, oh, here. Because they know what's coming next. I'm going to flip through a couple of pages on their cell phone calendar, their technology that overrode the paper day planning, and they're not going to have a plan or even a reasonable semblance of a plan on most of the days. And you go, remember, the question is, show me what you're using as a planner, not show me a planner. Everybody's got a calendar on their cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you, I got this from you, I don't think you coined it, but if you fail to plan to fail.
Absolutely right.
And so the planner was a big deal with me. I know that I don't necessarily do it anymore. I pay people to do that for me now.
Well,
I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But, you got everybody into action really kind of with these planners, right? Next thing you know, we're all walking around with these big binders with these planners in them and everything else. And one of the cool things was I actually had stopped doing it, but I mentioned it to Marshall that he should start doing it, and Marshall does it. Marshall's very well planned out. Like, he has to check his days.
He used to tell me, he's like, yeah, I'd ask Steve to go for a beer, and then Steve would put out his planner on the table and start flipping through it and be like, nope, can't do it, but I can do it tomorrow. 2:00.
Yeah. I can do it next Wednesday at 3.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Can you fit me in? Is there any cancellations?
In a 30-second story, I will tell you how I got there. When I got into the industry, the very first thing that my brother did was sent me to this 2-day TSI, Time Systems Incorporated time planning class that was so incredible, so powerful. It made an indelible impression on my life that will carry me through till my dying day. And so I learned the importance of planning and came back. And from there, I kind of thought how cool that my brother sent me and everything and spent the money. He got the money right back because he told me, now that you've made it through the course, every single time I catch you, not on what you're supposed to be on by virtue of your plan, which should have been made the night before, but at very worst case scenario, very first thing this morning, you owe me $5. And if you don't have it on you, I'll wait while you drive to a bank, right? Or an ATM with new thing called ATMs. Marshall, that's automatic teller machine. And so I'll wait here and you come right back, no matter how long it takes you or whatever you've got going. So about $3,000 later, because he would catch me standing in the hallway talking with Dave, and he would say, hey, little brother, hey, Dave, Steve-O, open your planner. Because it sure as hell better say talking with Dave in the hallway or you owe me $5. And it'd be back of the steps in the building, in the coffee room.
Popping out of the plant.
Man, I'm telling you, it changed my life. That's why you hear me harp on it all the time. If you go back and listen to that original podcast or listening to today's podcast, it's the reason you hear me harp on it over and over and over again. I even do it with my daughter is time planning. But Dad, we're on vacation. Right. Well, if you want to get the most out of your workday, how do you think you get the most out of your vacation? You plan the stuff, even if it's 5 hours of on the beach, it's 2 hours of horseback riding. It's, I want to go hike the volcano, Dad. I want to ride the bike down. All that is done by taking out a plan at the beginning of the trip and going, okay, what are the things that we want to do? Or do we just want to do nothing? But either way, whether you're doing nothing or doing everything, do it by design, not by default. That so many people, not just real estate agents, but certainly them too, so many people, they just fly through life by the seat of their pants. And when good things happen, it didn't happen by design. It happened by default. When bad things happen, it didn't happen by design. It happened by default. And you go, the day that I started living my life, which was fortunately, and because of my brother mostly, early in my 20s, by design, it's no wonder today that you live a life that, number one, I'm very happy with. And when I talk to most people about, I can tell they're a little tiny bit envious of. And you go, right, but it took a ton of planning to get here. It wasn't lucky. What do they say? The person that lands on top of the mountain didn't fall there.
Yep.
It's really true. You can achieve anything that you are willing to sit down and plan and reverse engineer into that plan. You want to produce $3 million a year. I think that gets lost a lot in the things that we all talk about. There are agents that do not aspire for $20 million a year in production. That there are agents that want to produce $3 million a year, make $90,000 a year gross, and be a part of their household's income system, but have plenty of time for all other things, kids and hobbies and traveling and family and things like that. And the way that you achieve that is by planning and taking here's the number I want to achieve. I'm going to work it backwards. Here's the number I want to achieve. That's the final goal. And I'm going to work it backwards. And to do that, you have to have some sort of a system for planning.
Yeah, for sure. I'm running through that right now. Is like my goal is, $30 million, right? Mm-hmm. And so $36 million, whatever it is. But I had to start coming through to realize that's not everybody's goal on my team. Mm-hmm. I make it their goal. That doesn't mean it's their goal, right? Mm-hmm. So I started wising up to that and working with them personally on what their goal is. And so whatever Marshall's goal is, whatever James' goal is, whatever Melanie's goal is, whatever Jason's goal is, I can put that together. And then I know that I have to go out and find other people to join my team to hit my goals. Mm-hmm. I certainly I can be on the hook for half of that. Right. Mm-hmm. However, if I want to work smarter, not harder, I would go out and find other agents that I could help put into production and give them the knowledge that I've been passed to me and help them get into production and have an agreement with them for a year or two to help me along to make that $36 million. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, and the only way I can do that is by planning. And how I plan is I get together with the group and we sit in there and we plan the year out. This is what this looks like. And I know that I need this many buy sides, this many sell sides. How many can I account for that? How many Marshall can account for that? Whatever else. And so now planning is a huge part of us. We're actually about to do our 2020 planning. We're supposed to hit it yesterday. We had some hiccups in the road, however, so we'll hit that before. And people are like, you're doing 2020 planning now? It's like, oh, yeah, now. Everything we do in real estate for November, December is going to start paying off in March and April.
And you're doing that now, with all due respect. It's November 19th. Right. You go, then pretty soon it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. And when the holidays hit, let's face it, even the sternest, hardest core workers start to back off a little bit. And you go, it's not conducive at that time of the year to do your plan. There is no such thing. It's like too much money or I'm too happy. There's no such thing as those things. And you go, it's too early to plan. Well, you can put that right in that category too, because there's no such thing as it's too early to plan. As a matter of fact, I find the earlier I plan things, the better they get done. Ask my brother, who I've been on more vacations with than anyone else. And that is because he says to me every time we talk about, I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Bora Bora. I want to go to, we take out the calendar and we write it down right then. We pick the date right then and we both put it in our calendar books right then, even if it's 14 months out. When it's 14 months out, you have the benefit of being able to set aside a couple hundred from different income sources monthly. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, your trip is paid for. So the further out planning there, of course, the better. But that carries over into all things in life, I think, that involve planning. Yeah. Whether you're planning for family stuff or friend stuff. We were just talking about, man, let's get together for that beer. So you can count on this. I won't be leaving you today without us having a calendar date so that we get out and go listen to a little live music and have a beer.
Exactly. And I want to clarify on that too, is that it does seem late in the game because it is late in November. We have planning sessions. And so everything we've been planning is leading up to this last session where we hammer it all down and have our goals done.
Good.
So that wasn't a very good example that I was giving, that yes, this is too late. We're doing this like super early because we're not.
December 31st. Why are you doing it so early, man?
This started a few months back, where we do this and we start snipping at what we want and what we can cut from the business. I think realtors need to realize that too, is that we can lose so much crap to make our days more productive, right? Mm-hmm. So that whole planning thing is fantastic. And I think part of that planning is sitting down with all of your bills, right? So sitting down with everything that you spend money on in the business or everything you're wasting time on in the business, right? And then you put it all on paper and what can you immediately eliminate? You can run through everything and like, what are the top 10 things you do a day? And then you can say, all right, as soon as you have those top 10 things, and that's hard to do. Every time I've asked a realtor to sit down and write me a list of 10 things you do every day, they can't make it past number 2 or 3.
That's incredible.
Right? And so if we do 10, if we get there, take the first or the last 5 and just eliminate them. And just cut the list right there, rip it off and do it. And now you only have to like focus on those top 5 things. Right. And so those were the first things that were easy to come up with in your head. Right. And so no one's really kind of putting on there, waste a lot of time doing Facebook, waste even more time on Instagram.
Making coffee.
Hey, that's important. Wait a minute. The coffee thing's important.
Yeah. I made Dave coffee so he doesn't yell at me for not doing the things. But, you know, I think that's uber important that realtors during their planning sessions, I think there's a lot of brokerages out there that exist that realtors don't have a lot of resources also, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
You know,
right.
you have these smaller brokerages that they come in and they say, you know, we're a flat fee brokerage. We're a 100% commission brokerage, right? And come on in, and you know, it's new realtors coming in the business are so hung up on the commission, and I think that should be number 10 on their list of things to worry about.
Absolutely. If only they knew, that shouldn't even be on their list.
Yeah.
You know what the base fee charged in the industry is, so you know if you're getting that or not. And outside of that, if you're taking care of the customer, the commissions will take care of themselves. New agents, I want you to look in the mirror after having just heard that and roll it back and listen to it again, write it down, use whatever words are yours, or you're welcome to use mine there. But say that to yourself looking in the mirror. When I take care of the customer, the commission dollars will take care of themselves. And if you say that a couple times a day, every day, looking yourself dead in the eye in the mirror, guess what? You're going to soon start to believe it. And then so will the customer. And when they can see that you care more about the outcome of the transaction than you do about how much you're going to make, your career will take what's called a boom paradigm shift. And you'll make a quantum leap jump to a level that you were probably unaware existed. Take care of the customer, and the commission dollars will take care of themselves.
Like that.
100%. I mean, you like that. I mean,
Awesome.
that's been
That's my motto. It's tattooed on my arm.
that's been the motto of our team.
It's on his back, everybody. It's on his back. I see it.
It's a never mind. I won't go into what's really tattooed on your arm. Meow. So with that, that became really important to us a few years back. I would say that I had that commission breath, right? So everything I was doing was for money, and it was all about the appointments I could get, and I would have everything drawn out on the board and say like, oh, I've got $65,000 in the pipeline this month that I'm going to make, you know, and that's after splits or whatever else. I had it all planned out. And then I realized like if things start falling out, and I would just kind of just go replace it, right? So if something fell out of contract, I would just go try to strong arm it and replace it. And then I just kind of started realizing from learning, from surrounding myself with better people, you know, people that were sustainable in the business and that had long, illustrious careers, that it wasn't about the money anymore. And I really do use that in every single listing appointment we go on, is that if I have commission breath in any sense, I mean, I don't say this, but, you know, the appointment's over. If they don't know, like, and trust me and know that I genuinely have their back through this transaction, you know, and not necessarily call it a transaction, but really kind of closing out this chapter and opening up a new chapter, whichever the one they're doing, you know, is I focus on that, and I don't really worry about the money anymore.
Very good.
I know that our bank account has plenty of money in it. It pays the bills every month. Everybody's salaries are paid. You know, that's a paid position here. The light bill's on every single time. I mean, everything auto drafts. I know that there's money in the account. I rarely even check the account. And when I do, I'm always surprised. Like, what's this $32 charge? You know, they're just like, who signed up for this?
It says right there, Dave Snowberger, Rick's Cabaret. What do you mean, Dave? How can you be asking that?
I'll pick something better.
Rick's Cabaret is a real estate school. So, you know, just when I stopped doing things for money, and this actually dates back from JB when he had that little card. Remember that little card? I think it was a mantra, but it was just kind of like his goal was to
Help people.
Really. And I
Absolutely.
didn't get that at the time, and I thought it was stupid. I didn't think helping people was stupid. I just didn't think that should be my mantra. Like, help people is going to help. No, what's going to help me is calling, 100 FSBOs a day and going out there and banging on doors and writing ad copy inside of Craigslist and getting my phone ringing. That's what I was doing. I was only trying to help me, right? And I would say that things started really picking up for me when I could help people. And then even when I brought on a new agent, when I decided that I was going to start expanding, and I brought on an agent, which was Marshall Tucker, I had to learn to help him because I threw him in that position to where I just thought he was going to be, whatever I was doing over here, I was out here just helping everybody, right? And I just turn around and give him all these leads or have whatever for him. I didn't realize that I needed to help him too. I needed to help him with conversion. I needed to help him with conversations. I needed to help him with contracts. I needed to help him
learn
be
inside of the
sustainable,
industry.
right? Yeah,
Sure.
make his business inside of my business sustainable as well, right? And it took me a little while and it took some conversations. I mean, I remember one time we got up in each other's faces. He was giving me a bullshit excuse about something where he had
just
dropped
didn't
the ball.
understand.
Yeah, he had dropped the ball on something, but then I just realized in a matter of split seconds when we were kind of raised voices, it was like, this is my fault.
Yeah, I dropped. Right, it was me that dropped.
I
the
dropped the
ball.
ball by
Exactly.
not by not doing what I said I was going to do. Is when I looked for an agent to join me, was I was going to nurture that agent into being this badass agent right next to me, and I didn't. I just neglected them. And everything these days is that all these leaders these days in this business take so much credit for what's good. Right? They take credit for, I do this and I sold $20 million and I do this and I have this podcast, but they don't take any credit for the failures.
Correct.
Right? And so they don't. And once I started taking credit for the failures and realizing that I'm at the helm of the ship, right? And we're all in charge of our own lives and our own business. I mean, there's not one realtor out there that technically works for anyone that draws a salary from a broker. If so, you're an employee, so you're off the hook. Everybody else, it's a commission base. You own your own business, whether you're on a team or not.
Yep.
Marshall owns his own business inside of mine. I own my business inside of EXP's model, right? And so, it's the same thing with James and everybody else. Now, the admins, they're paid staff, right? And then anytime they want to go into real estate and see what we do all the time in our struggles, they're like, we're okay. Like, I'm sure I'll pay for you to get your license. I'll teach you I think you'd be a great agent. You have great conversations. They're like, we like conversations on this side.
Yep.
We like our conversations to stop at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
And so,
Right.
and so leadership, I think I've been harping on leadership a lot lately. Everything I'm doing is leadership or raising my financial thermostat, which we'll talk about in a second if you got time.
Absolutely.
I know we probably got to let Marshall out of here.
I got to go, Steve. Glad you came in, man.
You got it. I'll catch up with you
It's
here.
on my planner. Just wanted to show you,
I love it. Very good.
So,
well, then it'll
I'm
happen.
excused.
Have a great day, Marsh.
All right, Steve, I want to go ahead and wrap it up right there. I'm going to ask you to come back tomorrow. I mean, I know that you're in town for a couple days. I'm bullshitting everybody. You live here, so. But you did fly in from Michigan last night. It wasn't for us. It was just to come home.
Glad we got that on tape.
Trying to make that sound a lot cooler than it was, Anyway, so let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Steve Fohl, we appreciate it. We want you back in the studio tomorrow. I know that we have you booked for about 30 more minutes on the next episode. James Butcher Mendez is going to go ahead and fade us out from here. I want to remind everybody to, if you need us for anything, hit Top Shelf Agents. So go ahead and text in Top Shelf Agents to 88000. And you can get a line directly to us and ask us any questions you want. If you're struggling at any part of your career, we would love to help. So with that, let's go ahead and get out of here. Oh yeah, Magic Mike 88000. Mike Harrell with guaranteed rate. Don't forget that guy ever.
Oh, I was wondering what you were looking at.
We usually